All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm gonna abstain because I was not on the
I
committee.
wasn't on the committee.
Oh, that's me.
Okay,
What are we doing now?
You can still vote.
Okay.
okay, so you still have two, okay. All right, so let's go through the board bylaws and policies, BB 2100. This is board elections.
So I'm not recommending any changes, but we brought this up at a board meeting for discussion, the cycle.
Yes,
So back in 2017, you changed the cycle to the current cycle, which is the June and March. And if you look into the public comment on the actual agenda, I put the language you had in there previously, where your elections were always held in June.
so what happened here is that in 2017, as Crystal said, this was moved to a June primary. And then I can't recall, the state legislature then passed a proposition that had the primaries be linked to the presidential primaries. So then the presidential primaries got moved to March, and then the governor's primaries stayed at June. So then the PCC elections had to follow the presidential, and that's why 2, 4, and 6 are in March, and then 1, 3, 5, and 7 are in June. And what that does is that it doesn't allow some of the trustees to serve their full term as an officer. So for example, Christine, who is the chair, instead of getting 12 months, she gets 9 months because the reorganization has to happen in April.
So it seems like we want to find out what procedure to follow in order to change it to propose having elections consistent with the November election. See what process we need to go to make that change over however long it takes to make the change. I think that's what we want to do.
Right, because then it aligns everybody to the November general elections. And what I've been told was that many of either it's the CCLC trainings or ACCT trainings, many of these trainings are also conducted in December and January because they assume that many of the trustees who are re-elected or elected will come on board in December.
I'm okay with moving it to the general.
Okay. So even though that's a direction that we're looking at, we just really want to kind of lay out what our options are and probably also look at what other districts are in November elections. I think we're probably one of the few that is still in the primary. We are? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we should take the steps of bringing it to a future committee here, and then, evaluating it, ruling out, then having the full board vote on it. Seems like that would be the process.
Okay, sure. Dr. Gomez, is there an administrative process that your team is going to
Yeah,
look at?
we can draft a proposed document. Is it a resolution? Is it a?
The proposed changes to the bylaw, probably.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
redline it, I would imagine, and then bring it to this
and
body,
change
and then,
change the date, right?
Mhm.
And then we go to the county.
I don't know if we need to go to the,
I think we want to check it with the county first
sure,
and make sure, and then,
yeah.
so we get the appropriate language.
Okay.
And then we'll have to think about when will it start,
Yes.
right?
So we would have just had an election in this March. So then it would probably start in the next one, which is 2026.
So you get an extra 5 months.
Yes, and then the next one, 2028, you'll get extra 8 months.
That actually happened the last time we switched to, the trustees who were in office got extra time
The last time it happened?
when we made this switch.
Yes, because you're right, because you will
I
get
guess March
to March,
to November.
yeah, that's like 8, 9 months. You will get an extra 8, 9 months. Okay. All right, great. Any other comments on AB 2100? Regular meetings of the board, AB 2310.
So the adjustments to this one were to take out the COVID language regarding emergency meetings and add the new Brown Act language regarding meetings during states of emergency. And actually general meetings that allow board members to participate remotely and the regulations around that. It's all in the bold print
Okay.
within the document.
And I recall if you, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, does this impact Zoom? Does this impact Zoom meetings or?
This has the language that talks about a board member being able to participate remotely under certain conditions, and that's when you could do the Zoom meeting.
And then there's also a number of meetings that a board member can participate remotely, right?
That's all in the bold language too, which says, a member cannot participate in meetings of the board solely by teleconference from a remote location for a period of more than 3 consecutive months for 20% of the regular meetings
Okay,
for the board within a calendar year.
so is that each individual board member?
That's
or is it
correct.
for the board as a whole?
That's each individual board member.
Okay, great, thank you.
And that's not, the board can't conduct their meetings via Zoom, it's just that a board member can participate via Zoom under the circumstances outlined
Right.
in here.
Up to 3 meetings and with. Do you need a motion for us to adopt the changes?
Yes, and then we need to go to the full board.
Okay, so we recommend that, this committee recommends that we adopt the changes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And then we have the BP 2710. This is a conflict of interest.
Yes, this is a very long one, and it was time for us to do just a complete rewrite, because it was actually simpler than trying to do all the strike through and bolds. So you'll see it's a complete rewrite. The old language was at the end and it struck through. And we had to, as usual, every year go through the list of disclosure categories and names under those and make sure that we are up to date and correct in those. So that's been all adjusted.
And this is all model language, right?
This is all CCLC template language, correct? And we actually sent this out to AALR, who provided us with an MLR.
Oh, that's great. Motion?
Wait, I'm looking, where are the classifications?
Right here, it's on page, with their
Disclosure
page
categories?
numbers.
Right there,
It's,
right there.
Oh,
Yeah,
here.
it starts
No,
on the
but-
other, it starts on the other.
But what, oh, I see, up here. Okay. Would we accept this? Board bylaw 2710.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along, BP 4260 is prerequisites.
Prerequisites, co-requisites, and advisories on recommended preparation. In lieu of 8705 and are eliminating a lot of our prerequisite coursework, we took the opportunity to also go in and do some softening of the language. This was done through a committee, a task force under the Academic Senate, and it's been through the Academic Senate, and they agree. So instead of saying careful scrutiny, we say a thorough process.
Yes. So, and can you share with us, when you say that the prerequisites are vital components in maintaining, we're saying that it's ensuring appropriate preparation, and we're crossing out academic standards?
Yes, that was actually the recommendation of the faculty. Because for the most part, we have to be very careful in our prerequisites, co-requisites, and advisories anyway. There's a lot of research that goes into it before we establish them, and we don't really have very many. They felt that academic standards was too strong of language. It's really just ensuring students have appropriate preparation to be successful.
I move we accept board policy 4260.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no objection. And the next one is BP 4400. This is community service programs.
Yes, community service programs, this is really our extension programs, and so we had to do some language changes to make sure they didn't overlap with our credit programs and things like homemaking, or now family and consumer science, and also to be sure that we understand, and it hasn't been done since 2009, we don't use general fund money for community service programs. These are all paid for on their own through our extension.
And the fiscal impact on this is,
None, because they're not paid for out of the general fund, they have to pay for themselves.
okay. Motion,
Move to accept.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, this is the BP 5035, withholding of student records.
Yes, the laws on this have recently changed, and we just thought it would be best to do a complete rewrite of this one as well. Specifically, we have to provide a student or former student with a written notice that they have a financial obligation to the institution. Also, we cannot withhold grades or transcripts to former students or students as a consequence of outstanding financial obligations. The only thing we are allowed to do is withhold a diploma. That's really the big change, is that is the only thing we can do is withhold a diploma.
And who created this change?
The state did.
The state. So, I mean,
Yeah,
we have, I mean,
Yeah.
this is
sort of
not optional.
perfunctory, correct.
Well, part of this too is part of the equity, to ensure that students are not, we're not being punitive, right,
I think it's not going to prohibit a student from continuing their education somewhere else, because they can still get their grades and their transcripts if they need to. We're just not going to give them a diploma.
It's interesting that it was last revised in 2021, and so the state has updated their laws within the last 2 years.
Move to accept.
A second.
All those in favor?
Make it hard to collect past due.
Well, and actually, the average outstanding debt is not very high for each student.
Is it?
It's not for us. No, it's pretty low. We forgive a lot.
Well, we did when we had the federal funds, but we won't have those going forward.
I think we still forgive it. At least I think we forgive to the point to allow them to continue registering, so that we don't block them on that.
So this won't make a big impact on us.
No.
The next one is classified hiring, BP 7230.
So the main reason we took this one up is because by law, the probationary period for classified employees has changed from a year to 6 months or 130 days. But we thought as long as we were going to do that review and make those changes, we might as well go ahead and actually define what a classified professional is at the institution. And so you can see we specifically say they're not substitute or short-term employees. they're not part-time apprentices, they're not full-time and students employed part-time, what our classified professionals are.
This definition of the classified, where does that come from?
That comes from CCLC and it's defined in Ed Code.
Besides CCLC, is there any other language that defines classified?
Well, it isn't CCLC that defined it, Ed Code defined it.
So
I
this is
just
from
use
Ed-
CCLC just puts it in their model policy.
Okay,
They all almost all their model policies are just Ed Code. So they
Okay.
just put it in there. We sometimes take that and say, well, let's just soften that Ed Code language a little bit. But this is directly out of Ed Code.
Move we approve?
Second.
okay, all in favor? Okay. Moving right along, BP 7335, health examinations.
Yes, health examinations. As you can see in the crossed out language, at one point in time, the district required all new monthly academic employees to have health examinations. That is actually not the case and not the practice and not defined in Ed Code anymore. It's really only those positions we designate as needing a health examination, and we have to be very specific about that. So the change here was to really say, and in this case, it's really faculty, they don't have to have health examinations in order to be employed here. They're only designated positions that we would require them.
And we don't need to have a list of designated positions here.
No, because that could change
Okay.
as we develop jobs or jobs change. But we just really wanted to get it out of the or the full-time faculty language, that they don't have to have health exams. Which is what it actually says if you read it without the crosswords.
Move we approve?
Second.
All in favor? Faculty exchange, BP 7800.
Yes, as you can see, I haven't undertaken this one since 1995.
Oh my God.
Because I really didn't know what to do with it, and I finally just bit the bullet and went after it. And really the big thing I needed to do is define that this is actually only for faculty. And
How did this come up, Crystal?
Well, I tried to do a cycle and get them all through, and I kept looking at this one and going, what am I going to do with this one? But I finally just took it, and actually the faculty were great. They were very helpful. I was with the Senate for a couple of readings of this, and they were fantastic. So we changed it because it's specifically faculty, and we talked about the need to, it's an exchange. It's not a sabbatical, it's an exchange, whereas our faculty member goes somewhere and we get one from somewhere
So
else.
they're working.
Correct.
Okay.
So I actually do have comment, which,
Go ahead.
oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, which relates to what I brought up Wednesday. I don't know if this is the place, that if we are sending faculty to Texas or Missouri, to a state that bans full reproductive health care, we need to be able to bring that faculty member back to California if the
Well,
need arises.
Let's remember that this is at the purview of the faculty member. This isn't the district who goes out and says, we're going to exchange you. The faculty members actually have to go out, find the exchange, and agree to the exchange.
Right.
And we do pay them. They get paid by us, they get our health care coverage, and the exchange person gets paid by their college, business, or district to be here. So they would have to, I think, know ahead of time what they were getting into. But we can force them. There's no way the district can force a faculty member to do this. This is voluntary on their part to engage in it.
All right, I mean, we'll leave it, it's just, again, something to think about, that you start out starry-eyed, you're really excited about the opportunity, it's gonna be great for your career, and yeah, something happens. And if you're in a place like Texas, as you saw recently in the news, you're in a pickle.
You are? Yeah.
So maybe you will give it some second thought to going to the exchange in Texas.
Well,
That does put undue burden on women versus men.
Crystal, I don't think that we have any knowledge of this policy ever being utilized.
No, but I do think
Maybe
that,
that's why it's since
1980,
1985, because no one
I
has
do
the.
think though that that's language we could put in the administrative procedure, that the district would agree to, if for medical purposes, bring the faculty member back. We could put that in the AP.
Okay.
A motion?
Move to approve.
Second,
All in favor? All right. Well, we've gone through our action, well, not necessarily our action items, but our recommendations. And now we have an information item, midterm preparation timeline. And I assume that midterm preparation means that we're talking about the accreditation?
Correct.
Okay, great.
So this is my lovely little diagram that I laid out for the Accreditation Standing Committee on our timeline for preparing our midterm report. It's different this than it has been in the past, as an ACCJC actually gives us a very clear template of what we have to fill in. The Accreditation Standing Committee has already met, as you can see, twice actually, and we have assigned the areas out and are working on the actual writing. We expect their draft to come to us in June. Lenora and I will work on preparing a draft to go through shared governance, and it should come to the board, we're hoping, probably in March, April, September, October, November and December, so that we are ready for our February submission.
Is there anything we can do to help?
No, it's actually, you know, it's a very clear template and it's a very reflective process. As previous midterms, we actually had to basically go through and address every standard again. That's not what we have to do this time. And since we only had one recommendation for improvement last time, it's a very short midterm for us. Yeah, should be pretty easy to prepare.
So when it comes to the board,
It'll be-
in September, it
Oh.
says shared governance review board is listed as in September.
The board will actually get it a little later. We'll put it through all its steps here first, through the academic senate, classified management. I'm expecting it to get to you in November and December for your reads.
So one of the things that came up is when we talk about board input, I think this came up when we were talking about the vision statement and the mission statement, where when it came to the board, it was like, this is it. So do you think that we can also have it along the time of September? So if we do have feedback, then you can also get some time, because if it comes to us in November, December, we have some feedback, it goes back to you, then it's January, February, so you may not have as much time, and
Sure.
we may not have as much time to process it as well.
Why don't we try to aim for October for you, because I will have done some preliminary work with the shared governance groups, so that if you have other input, we'll still have time to take it back to you.
Great.
With full knowledge it's a draft.
Correct, correct.
A lot of this stuff is pretty pro forma.
Perfunctory,
Yeah. I mean, they just want statistics mostly, right?
Well, you know, actually interesting this time, it's a lot of reflection.
Okay.
Everything is stated with reflecting on what we've done, how we've improved, how we've used our data to improve, how we're looking at learning assessment, what discussions are going on. It's all, everything starts with reflect on and move to right.
Essay question.
And I think this is a good, I think this is also a good opportunity for some of the new board members, because we're gonna have that election, and we will have 2 new board members, for them to have time to review this and to learn more about what transpired the last few years on PCC.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Does any kind of surveys ever is it ever a part of accreditation work?
It would be for an ICER, for the full institutional self-evaluation. We would definitely encourage input survey information in that. But for the midterm, that's really not what they're asking us.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for bringing up the survey, because I think that was a question that has come up multiple times as to where we are with surveys of stakeholders.
And the ICER is when?
Our next one,
Yeah.
2027.
We have a very clean
Yes,
accreditation.
we do.
So that's why, I mean, if we have significant deficiencies, we would be working constantly on things. So this is, we're reflecting, but they don't expect. I mean, it's not like an audit or anything like that, which is almost what it feels like when you do have a deficiency of some kind and you're coming in to make sure that you're correcting, whatever it was that you were doing.
I think it's also important to note that in our next cycle, we'll be under the new standards, which goes from like 127 to 29.
That's great.
So,
Because I recall Chancellor Harris informing us when we were going through our board evaluations, president's evaluations, that the standards at that time was being reviewed, so now they're finalized.
correct.
They happen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, meeting schedule. When do you think you can have an update on the board election information?
Well, they probably don't want us talking to them next week. I would say after the first of the year, we can probably start working on that.
So maybe we can look at a time in either end of January or early February for the next meeting.
Sure.
Audrey, you was gonna doodle poll? You're
Yes.
the doodle poll?
Sure.
All right. Great. Proposed future agenda items.
I propose the administrative, Crystal, what's the correct phraseology? Administrative procedure for reproductive health care, for accessing reproductive health care if you're in a state that doesn't allow.
That would be for the AP, right?
Yeah, that would be the AP. I can let you know at that meeting the language we could have included in the AP.
It's,
APs
What's
don't
in the
come to the board,
oh,
but Dr. Gomez could approve the language changes.
and it's called administrative procedure?
All
We
right.
will,
We will work on that together
and we can bring it to you all.
to let you know what we've done.
I would appreciate the preparation for this meeting because I think I may have beat Jim's record of the fastest committee meeting on a Friday afternoon, so I want to give you back your time. If there's no further,
Well, I've allocated more time.
you did, right? Okay, so if there's no other comments, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
All in favor? Yay, great, thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy
everyone.
holidays.